Alright, here we go again. So we're going to be using, for now we're going to be using Spriter Pro to animate some of our sprites. So first thing you might want to do is just make sure that you have all your sprites kind of in check. So for me, I have a new folder here called New Body Parts. It's just a new a new folder for testing out some stuff for animation. So if you go in here, you have a folder here, Body Parts, and in here you basically have most of, well, all of your sprites nicely cropped up. So best you probably want to make sure that these are cropped nicely, so the bounding, the bounding box isn't too big, so it's kind of, so the background isn't this big. Here, let me show you. So sometimes your sprites may, some of the sprites that you guys might cut up might end up being like this. So if that's the case, maybe just crop it so that first things first, make sure that it is aligned properly to and that it's so that you can have the maximum amount of, well, the minimum amount of space in between it, and then you can just crop it here so we don't really waste that much space and it makes things look a lot neater. So yeah, just keep that in mind for now. And for the most part, most of these body parts are pretty good. So yeah, once you got that, you can go ahead and get started. So I'm going to close that and just go ahead and open Spriter. I have the Pro Edition, but for what I've read, I think what the Pro Edition has is just some like starter sprites, and I think for the most part, regular Spriter might have most, if not all, of the functionality of Spriter Pro. But you'll have to check and see, and maybe ask me if for some reason you can't see a feature that I might be showing you. Okay, so first thing you want to do is go ahead and make a new project here, and you'll have to choose a root folder. And for me, I'll just use that folder that I have all my sprites in. There, this one should be good, and that's where your project is going to be saved. So make sure that your project is saved to one of these folders here. Go ahead and select that, and as you can see here, this is kind of the interface here. There's a window here called the Z order. You can drag these out if you want to, but for now, just keep it somewhere here. And just kind of, there we go. And then there's an object properties here. We'll talk about more of these windows later. So what we want to focus first is this one here called, that has this your folder here. So I'll open this up, and you can see that you have your sprites here. Go ahead and start dragging some of the stuff here. So this is and you want to basically drag some of your sprites that you want to animate into the canvas here. You can do that, and one thing you'll want to do first is to make sure that the pivot point for your sprite body part is in fact where you want it to be. So you can do that by double clicking here in your palette here. Double click on this image here, and you can go ahead and change the pivot point to wherever you want it to be. In this case, I'll just want it to be here. By default, it's over here, and you probably won't want that for the most part. Click OK, and as you can see here, now it rotates in that point there. Same thing with the rest of them. So say I put in her hair here, and edit the pivot points somewhere here, should be good. And I'll just do a couple of these body parts. I won't do all of them, just to make things simple. And this torso here, go ahead and put the pivot point somewhere here. And what else? Excuse me. Maybe this arm here. Go ahead and edit that there. And one last arm here, so that their front arms are complete. There we go. That should be good. And next thing you want to do is, as you can see here, you'll have in your Z order tab here. You can also switch to hierarchy if you want to. You'll see that most of your sprites are here. You can go ahead and rename it by double clicking on your here, and I'll just name this front arm for now. Do the rest maybe if you want to do that. I'll just name this front arm, and actually I'll just name this into torso. Head. This one's her hair. And this one and just name this front hand. Okay. Well, once you have that, at this point, it's actually pretty good. As you can see here, the hair is actually in front of her head. And next thing you want to probably do is to make sure that the Z order of your sprites are correct. So you can do that fairly easily. So maybe you want your hair to be in the back of the head. There are a few ways you can do that. One thing you can do is to go to your Z order tab here and just basically drag your sprites around and make sure that each one is in the right order here. In this case, I just moved the head up here so that now the head is now in front of the hair. And easier way to actually do it, and you should probably do it as well, is to just click on the body part that you want, and you can go ahead and hold Control and press either up or down. And as you can see on the tab here, it actually moves it up or down depending on where you go. You can also put left and right to put it in the very top or bottom, but for the most part, this one's probably the easiest way to do it. So do that when you can, and just make sure that all of them are in the correct Z order. Okay, once you have everything pretty much lined up, what you can do next is to, well, if you go ahead and open this up here a little bit, you can actually see your timeline is going to be here. So actually I'm going to show you how to do a bone animation first. So the difference in Spriter and Unity is that you can have this feature called bones, and basically what you can do with it is to animate it with a bit more constraints, and it might make animation easier, it might make it a little bit more annoying, but it will really depend on the kind of animation you're trying to create, or maybe how many body parts your characters might have. It'll really depend. So, but for now, I guess I'll show you how to quickly create some of these bones here. So first thing you want to make sure is that this little tab here is set to create bone, and what you can do is, if you hold Alt and start to click, you'll see that you can actually create something called a bone here. And for now, we'll make this bone so that it's around the same height as the head. It doesn't really matter too much. And if you switch to your hierarchy tab, you can see that the bone is in there. So there's a difference between the Z order and hierarchy tab, so just be careful about that. If you want to change the Z order of stuff, make sure you're in the Z order tab. But yeah, once you have that, you can see that you have this thing as this bone here, and we'll go ahead and assign this to the head for now. And once you've done that, we'll maybe create more bones. So you can go ahead, and if you still have this bone selected, you can go ahead and hold Alt and create another bone. And as you can see here, when you select stuff, it automatically becomes a child of that bone. So basically what bones do is that you can edit it so that you can rotate certain bones, see if certain bones, and you'll have to assign a sprite to it so that it moves around it. So in this case, the head bone is actually attached to the child bone here. I'll just name this bone is going to be for the torso, so I'll just name this torso bone. This one is going to be head bone. And first thing you want to do is to make sure you can also move these bones around. So as you can see this blue line that you can see right now. That's basically how the bone is connected to the other bone, so you might have to edit that a little bit. But if you turn around the bone by clicking on the bone, make sure that you have the bone selected, and you hover over it, and you should see this rotation arrow. You'll see how the bone kind of reacts to it. So since actually this one's the head, actually maybe I'll make this into the torso bone actually. So, and this one I'll just make this into the head one because that will make more sense here. And here there's a bone. And what you can do now is maybe rotate this for now. And notice how if you rotate this moves along with it, but if you rotate this doesn't, because head bone is a child of torso bone. So just keep that in mind when you're making sure that the bones in your character are correct. And I'll just edit it so that this is around here. Okay, so that's how you make bones for the most part. You can go ahead and make more bones. So this one's gonna be for the hair, and this one's gonna be for the hand, and this one's gonna be for her arm. It doesn't have to be too perfect as long as the bones are good. Oops. And make sure that your bones are connected to each bone correctly. And if it's not, then maybe here I'll use this bone. Just connect this bone here. I'll name this one arm bone, front arm bone, arm bone. And this one, I'm gonna use this as forearm bone. And this one's gonna be the hair bone. And we'll just have to make sure that all these bones are connected correctly. But before that, I'm gonna go ahead and show you how to child these sprites to the bone. So let's say I want this bone for the head to move so that the sprite for the head moves with it. I'll fix all that later. What you can do is, easiest way to probably do this is to just go to your hierarchy tab, drag your hair with the head bone, and once you've done that, if you click on your bone, basically makes it so that your head actually follows your bone around. So yeah, that's basically how you would child your head to a certain bone. So go ahead and do that to the torso, and do that to the hair, and front arm, and front hand. Which one was this? Yeah, front hand. And once we do that, we're going to go ahead and edit the hierarchy of our bones a little bit, because at this point it is kind of weird. So in this case, we want our head bone to rotate with the hair, and if you want to rotate the hair, we shouldn't have the other bones here shouldn't follow it. So go ahead and make sure that front hand bone is outside of the hair bone here, isn't the child of the hair bone. And once we've done that, it should connect correctly, and go ahead and fix the rest of these for now. So in this case, the head is pivoting with the arms, and we don't want that to happen. So make sure that the front hand, this arm is just connected to the torso here. Oops. And then make sure maybe we can, and if we turn this front arm here, we want our front hand to be turning with the front arm. So go ahead and make sure that front hand is child of front arm. Front hand. There we go. There. And if you want to edit the palm cell, you can go ahead and move the sprite to some closer to your bone so that it's a bit easier to do. And there you go, that should do it for the most part. And just move that there a little bit. Just double check things, make sure that they're all connected properly, and there we go. But yeah, you might have to fiddle with the bones a little bit to make sure that things are connected properly. Anyway, that should be good enough for now. And last thing we can do now is to mess with the timeline here. So basically the same for the most part. It's basically the same with the Unity. Go ahead and adjust the play speed for now here. I'll make sure this is 100% for now. And you can edit the amount of keys in your timeline, so maybe we'll just make this to 200 for now. Apply the length, and right now you should have around 200 keys for now. And basically it's pretty much similar to how the Unity's animation timeline works. So if I put this at 100 and maybe move her head here, I'm gonna go ahead and start to animate that. Maybe make her hairs something like this. And if you press this loop key, it's not. You can press this one, and basically what this little key here, but basically what it does is that it makes your animation loop. And if you don't want that to happen, you can go ahead and unselect it so that it doesn't actually loop. Right now it goes like that, and maybe at around key 200 if you make sure that it's in there, and you scroll way over here, and maybe at here I can turn this here, and maybe at frame 200 I have her head around here, and her arms maybe around here, and her arms something around here like this. And yeah, that's so. Yeah, now as you can see, her head is so animated pretty well. And if you click play, it is a little bit fast, so I'll just put the speed a little something like that. Play speed something like that. Whoops. Apparently that's not gonna work. I'll just make this -16. There we go. So yeah, that's basically how you would animate stuff. So you can animate each individual sprite using the keyframes if you want to, or if you want to just do all of them, you can do that. And yeah, one last thing is that you can actually edit the if you right click on one of the keyframes here, you'll see this little thing come out, and if you right click on them, you can go ahead and actually edit the keyframe, the way that the keyframe goes, the animation goes from one keyframe to another. In this case, you can do instant, where it just basically teleports it to the next one, next keyframe here, or if you want, or go linear, which is basically go from one point to another at the same speed. Custom, or you can customize it, and you have a few types here, so you can go speed curve or Bezier curves here, and basically functions the same as how you would with your animation curves. If you apply that to this keyframe here, it will affect the way your character animates. So since we have our Bezier curve happening here, so it's going to go slow and then suddenly change to its next position. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Go ahead and save that. I'll go save that as test animation, and it should save. And you can go ahead and save and load that project anytime, but just make sure that you have your project saved in your body parts, somewhere in your body parts folder, so that there's no confusion as to where the body parts folder is going to be, and you can easily load up your body parts sprites. You can also export it to a sprite strip maybe, or animated GIF if you want to. And I guess I'll have to kind of experiment a little bit and see which kinds of what kind of exporting we can use that will be the best for Unity. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Good. And yeah, pretty sure that's pretty much it. I don't really forget anything. So yeah, Alvin, you owe me another beer.